Major support for Out to Lunch Acadiana is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. Support also comes from Wyndham Garden Lafayette.
From Cafe Vermilionville in Lafayette, we're out to lunch with Professor of Finance and Director of the award-winning Berken Road Reports, Peter Raschuti. It's business, Acadiana style.
Hi, I'm Peter Raschuti. Welcome to Out to Lunch. William Shakespeare famously wrote in his play, As You Like It, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man, in his time, plays many parts. Now, like much of Shakespeare's work, you can look at this on many levels. One interpretation is, although we each believe we are masters of our own destiny, in fact, much of our life is spent performing for others, doing what others expect of us, these days especially in our professional or work life. For some of us, life is even more complex than Shakespeare observed. If you actually are a professional performer, your serious workday world is a stage, and your work life consists of actually playing the part of fictional characters. Amy Waguespack is an actor and theater director. Amy is the founder and artistic director of Acting Up Theater Company. Acting Up is the resident professional theater company at the Acadiana Center for the Arts, the ACA. Amy, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. Now, Clare Cook is a dancer and choreographer. Clare is the artistic director of the Clare Cook Dance Theater and the founder of Basin Arts, a new dance and art space here in downtown Lafayette. Clare, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you so much.
Now, Clare and Amy, both of you have similar histories in the performing arts. You both moved back to Lafayette for family, and you were in the midst of successful careers in New York City. Presumably, being successful in New York theater and dance is as difficult and competitive as it is made out to be in movies and TV. It must be tough to walk away from all that hard work that went into that success and from the excitement of living and performing in New York. Both of you have had to start over here in Lafayette and have carved out impressive second careers as performers and business people. What's it been like as New York theater professionals adjusting to working in Lafayette? Clare, you moved back most recently. Let's start with you. What have you had to adjust to?
Well, I think there's the lack of a large community of like-minded professionals. Seemingly, that's like what was my biggest concern or nervousness about moving back. But then, actually, I would say I was very happily surprised to meet so many creative people and so many really innovative, talented theater makers and performers in this community that I just didn't know. And it was really quite a treat.
So for a small community, it has a lot of
there's
folks
a
in it.
lot of creative power in this small community, and it's really inspiring to me. And in fact, I mean, I was gone 10 years, and I think in fact, the community has changed a lot in those 10 years in terms of opportunities for creativity and growth. And I relish in the fact that I spend my day around all people that I never knew until I met them a year ago. Like, it's wonderful. It feels like a really true new creative beginning.
And Amy, what about yourself? You came back
15 or so years ago. I mean, the decision for me to come back was primarily I had a daughter who was becoming a tween and not really wanting to raise a tween as a struggling artist in New York City. And also for family reasons. My father got ill, and so the decision to come back was easy in that way. But I think, like Clare, I was unsure what I would find as far as creative stimulation or people to work with. And like Clare, very pleasantly surprised by what I did find. And I think, and Clare, you can tell me if you agree, some of it is just, especially south of I-10 in Louisiana, the importance of culture, music, food, festival, that a resonance, dance and theater are not foreign necessarily. The formal training or staging maybe a little bit, but there's an openness
Yeah, I would 100% agree that the propensity to culture and the respect of culture and the realization that creativity as just a part of how we live, I mean, dancing and eating and drinking and singing and playing music, that's just how people live here, you know, so it's not far removed
Exactly.
from the craft of it, though, you know, there's some training involved. But
Right.
Yeah.
Now, when Claire came back, a lot of things had changed for the better. Amy, when you came back, not all of this was here. What has happened since you've returned to the area in terms of the arts community?
Wow. For one, the Acadiana Center for
Right.
the Arts, which is huge, with its fantastic galleries and flexible, state-of-the-art, 300-plus seat theater. That's a huge thing that happened. And I know theatrically, just a passion and a boom of all these little theater companies that have sprung up, where I feel like when I was first here, they used to be Lafayette Community Theater, and it had sort of disappeared. I think Abbey Players was maybe one of the steadier little companies, and now I probably couldn't name them all. So there is like a little resurgence or excitement
Do you
about
sort of all
theater.
know each other?
Somewhat.
Yeah?
I mean, there's
Because
crossover.
if I could just get you together, I think this would be really...
There's some crossover, and people come and go, move away, come back.
Yeah, there's some hot spots. So if you know a few people,
Right.
then you realize, well, okay, that's how that all connects.
2
you know?
degrees of separation,
Yeah, exactly.
not
Right,
6.
not
Yeah.
6 here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you on the business side of it? Has it been tough? Now, Claire, you actually started your own group over there. What's it been like? And I take it your background is in theater and dance. Did you have to kind of learn the business side, or?
Yeah, I had a sort of a fortunate accident. When I was going to college, I went to LSU, and I was really strongly interested in majoring in dance, but LSU didn't have a major. But I was interested in leaving Lafayette because I was kind of wanting to get out of the city.
Yeah.
But then there was TOPS, so TOPS there's no better deal.
Yes.
So I ended up at LSU, and I ended up majoring in public relations because there
What great
wasn't an
foresight.
arts management degree at the time. And I sort of band-aided it and patched it together and said, okay, if I substitute this class here and take this class there. So the department was really great. In fact, they actually just allowed me to
Kind of make
sub
your own
in a
major,
lot
yeah.
of my electives to augment an arts management focus. And I didn't realize, I was always interested and I enjoyed the classes so much, but I didn't realize how valuable that would serve me later, because then when I moved to New York City and I went to grad school, I started really working as an arts manager and a company manager and a grant writer for other people's companies very early on, and that was how I supported myself. And along the way, got the best education in managing artists and managing companies and producing creative performances and events, and in a huge market, so it gave me a lot of in the on the job training or a skill set that has served me time and time again. And so I think it was in 2011 when I decided to start Clare Cook Dance Theater. Now, and it's so different in New York City. It's not a brick and mortar in the same way that we would think about starting a company in Lafayette, Louisiana. It was an entity through which to produce my own projects. And so, but I felt when I was ready to do that, I had so much behind me in terms I didn't feel nervous about the management side of it or the business side. That felt natural. It was more like, okay, now I have to make the work.
Right, actual project.
Yeah.
Now, Amy, what about the business side on your end?
I would say I had the polar opposite experience of Claire. I was teaching theater, and when I decided to start my own company, had 0 business experience. Since then, I've always advised students, minor in business, minor in something that's going to help you learn how to manage your career, or
parents are going to play
So
this show for their children, actually.
Yes. So I learned by default. I have a brother who's a CPA who's taught me a lot along the way, so that helps. But it's still the more painful side of it for me. I do it because I have to, and I've gotten fairly good at it, but I'd much rather be in the theater teaching or directing a show or being creative.
But you got to keep the doors open and
Absolutely.
the lights on. And where does revenue come in for you guys? Where does
Well, for Basin Arts, it's through classes. So we've started a roster of primarily all adult-focused dance classes, dance and fitness classes. So the idea being that, especially in this community, there's so many young people that dance and they take dance classes through high school and then they finish and there's no where do you continue to do it, even if you're not going to be a professional, but it's your outlet, it's your expression, it's your fitness, so how do you find that? So we've really enjoyed having the opportunity to kind of bring these people back to dance, and so that's a big revenue stream for Basin Arts.
And then what about the
Clare
other
Cook
part?
Dance Theater, we essentially operate as a fiscally sponsored nonprofit organization.
So donations or?
Donations, fundraising, ticket sales, with productions, but we don't rely on ticket sales to necessarily pay the bills. I think we partner with the Community Foundation of Acadiana. They are one of our fiscal sponsors. So when we have certain projects, we're able to fundraise and raise money through donors and grants. We got a nice grant this year from LIDA and the ACA and Art Spark grant. So it's a constant hustle, but you hope that you always just can find the right words to express the project at hand, and so it feels meaningful for people to get behind it.
That's why you got this public relations background. See, I told you. I remember you called me and I said, major in public relations. Now, Amy, I've got to ask you kind of a similar question, but what about the economy in Lafayette? We've had a downturn for a number of years here. Has it affected you? Did you see it?
I've been here long enough to have seen it a couple of times.
Okay.
During, 2009, I saw a dip in the number of students we had, and also the concern that parents had about being able to afford it. I'm seeing that again right now. I have confidence that it will wave back through. The other thing that I've noticed right now with the flooding, I have a number of students who feel very overwhelmed because of the days missed from school and the pressure on cramming things in and homework and feeling like I can't participate in this event because of this. That will all settle down and balance out, but I would say we're seeing a difference right now for sure.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a perfect storm in Lafayette because we have the greater economy that's a bit of a shaky situation. Then on top of that, we have the oil economy and then the flooding. So it's really, we're supposed to open Basin Arts the day of the flood. So it's been a very, I feel so fortunate that we were able to still move forward. And that's what you do in life is we have so many people dependent on so many components of this business. So we moved forward a week later. But I definitely feel like there's a timidness to commit, a timidness to say, I'm going to try this one time, but I'm nervous to commit because people still aren't in their homes.
Right.
A lot of people are.
Now, when you were in New York, I've got to ask you this. The TV shows always show people, waiting tables and all that. Did you guys do that?
I actually never did.
Okay.
I was always doing my little public relations.
Good. See, there you go.
I did a lot of other random things, babysitting, private dance coaching for very wealthy old ladies.
Wow.
Really random
Did
stuff.
some of them break through? Do you think it's
No.
Okay, I'm just checking.
But for whatever reason, that's about the only thing I didn't do was wait tables.
I didn't either.
Really?
Strangely
Jeez,
enough.
I don't know why I watch these movies.
Because I think we were both there primarily for grad school most of the time. I had my assistantship that also led into summer work that I could do in their main theater, similar to the Hyman Performing Arts Center. So it would carry me over through the summer. Or I'd get hired to go do a workshop in Maine.
Right.
That would, what we do is constantly piecemealing things together.
Well, that's some business acumen right there, just staying afloat during
Right.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Peter Raschuti. My guests are Amy Waguespack from Acting Up Theater Company and Clare Cook from the Clare Cook Dance Theater. Wait, would you recommend to a young person? I know, I teach finance, and a lot of people tell my students, go to New York, work on Wall Street for a few years and then come home. What do you think about in your end of the work? I mean, you've both benefited a lot by moving away and coming back, I guess.
That's a complicated question. And as when I do have students that turn to me for that as a sort of a mentor-mentee, I really try to avoid telling them what to do. I will listen and let them process and try to help them discover what the best decision for themselves might be. Because it's
such an individual
it really is.
choice.
It really is.
Because I think it's, I highly speak in favor of expanding your horizons, whether that is moving out of Lafayette and moving to New Orleans, or prioritizing going to a museum once a week. You know, like something, it can be on a small scale. So I think I always am, interestingly, now in a position where people are asking my opinion on that here, and I'm going, I don't know. Oh, maybe I know a little bit more.
Maybe I am the expert.
Well, not even that, but it's like just a whole different community of people looking for advice. And I think I know personally I hugely benefited from leaving, and the experience and the work that I was able to do in New York has constantly informed and contributed to the success that I can continue finding in my field, you know. But I think that it's really an individual.
It really is, and it benefited me because I had wanderlust. I mean, I had that adventurous spirit. And one of the things I discovered when I was living in Maine and New York was how much my work was influenced by Louisiana. Whether it was my research or the way I staged plays. And I was like, wow, I guess I kind of do love that place that I ran away from.
Yeah, it keeps coming back up, right.
And so it benefited me. I'll give an example. I have one former student who's now a full artist of her own, teaching in the talented theater program. Her wanderlust happened as an Army brat.
Oh,
and so she had a desire to stay here and make roots here. But she's been fantastic about, on a regular basis, taking herself out of here to go take workshops in Philadelphia or New York or Chicago in the summers when she's not teaching. So I think people find
their
path
right balance,
if they have someone to listen to them and process.
I think that's right. They have, in fact, you know, whenever I meet a student, I ask them where their hometown is. If they can't answer, they're either military kids or oil kids. Those are the two that just only ones that struggle with that question. But you know, Amy, I mentioned all the changes here, but what I didn't say was that you're a big part of the changes in the last 15 years here.
Well, it makes me uncomfortable to take credit. I've been fortunate enough to find this group of people, some of whom I've been working with the entire time, who I've watched grow up from college-age students into full-blown teachers and directors themselves. So it's not, in theater and dance, it's never a one-person show. For like our summer youth Shakespeare program, the reason why we're going to have our 15-year anniversary is because there's a core group of people who've been doing it from the first year, that know the well-oiled machine, that, you know.
Let's talk about that well-oiled machine. For people like me, I have no idea what the process is of staging a performance. I mean, where does it start? Just some people kicking around an idea for a production? Is that what goes on? We've never been behind closed doors. This is very sneaky.
It can start, I mean, it's so many ways. If you're doing something like Shakespeare, I think the process would be very different than a lot of times I'm working with writers and composers to create an original piece. So that process, we are literally starting from a blank page and a seed of an idea or a concept. So, I mean, it can very realistically and conservatively take 2 to 3 years to fully develop a piece that starts from an original idea.
And once you get to that stage, the two kinds of productions must be somewhat similar, though. How do you decide where it's going to be and who the players are going to be?
Well, for us, because we do have a small group of professionals that work together regularly, we'll often ponder, do we have enough people to anchor roles in a major Shakespeare production? We've also developed original work when the time feels right for it. For example, after Katrina, we did a massive, I think there were 40 contributing artists that started with the 24-hour plays, developing stories about what it's like to, and it was about a 2-year evolution before it went to the New York Fringe Festival, or before it was ready to go out of here. But with the Shakespeare, we always ask ourselves, whatever we're going to do, original or Shakespeare, why this play for this audience at this time? Why is it relevant? Who's going to care about this work? Because our job as performing artists, it's a communal experience with our audience. And hopefully we're leading them somewhere new without losing them. But that's sort of my philosophy when making those decisions.
I'm going to ask you, both of you, but particularly Claire, you had mentioned that there's a culture of dancing here, and that has got to make it very different. I mean, in other parts of the country, dance is something maybe you do when you're young and a teenager, and then nobody does it, but that's not true here. How does that change the game for you guys?
I think it's a little bit of a, on the one hand, you have that access point or that entry point. People are maybe more comfortable innately in their body or their festive dancing world. On the other hand, though, the challenge is to also introduce this idea of concert dance or this idea of professional dance as an art form and rely on the joy that people know from dance, but channel sort of a new experience with dance. So you want both to exist. You want people to feel free and open to just enjoy and dance as humans, but you also want a community to feel like they have that professional level of expression and that artistic level of expression that dance can also bring.
What about you? I mean, in terms of audiences, you don't have to teach them. You don't have to start from zero like you would in some towns, I would think.
No. I mean, I think where I've at times started from zero was when I was teaching at the college level, and I would have students taking the required arts elective and maybe never have seen theater or dance. And so I would give extra credit for watching a Mardi Gras parade from a performance point of view, or going to Festival International and watching it from a performance. What's the lighting? What's the staging? What are the costumes like? What are the sounds like? So that they could come back and have an experience they've probably had before, but looking at it in a new way. So I guess those are my experiences of starting from scratch.
You mentioned that ACA facility, by the way. I saw Lyle Lovett there and Robert O'Kane. It's the perfect size, too.
I think so.
It's a great facility.
Yes.
I mean, it's a real gym, I think, for what we do.
I agree.
And let me ask you about investors. Do they play a part in this?
Not so much investors.
Or sponsors? Or
occasionally, like for Summer Shakespeare, we've written grants to the Jazz and Heritage Foundation to help pay for some of the salaries. And because that's covered, we're able to offer some scholarships or partial scholarships. We've done crowdfunding at times. We used to write more of the Louisiana Division of the Arts grants, but we're doing less of that. I'm not saying that we won't.
Right. They're broker than we are. It's the state.
Right. So it's more sponsorships, saving. Oftentimes we don't rely on our box office, but we'll try to save it as our seed money for the next project, those sorts of things. But it's a tight, conservative little budget that we make things happen.
Just the way you were listing them, it seemed that obviously you've already thought this out, but you've got a lot of different avenues to try to get the money to keep these things going.
Right.
That is. What about you, Claire? Are there outside sponsors or?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a new territory for me and for our company thus far, because we just had our first full production in Lafayette just this year. So that was a learning curve in terms of just who's interested in the work and who's wants to get behind this type of work.
You're a startup. You should view yourself as an entrepreneur and really.
I mean, and I do take that perspective, because I think that an entry point in terms of conversation with funders is just that perspective, is what we do in this community artistically only brings greater diversity and wealth to the community as a whole.
And I will tell you from the other side that when you're trying to recruit companies to come here and people, that's all part of the package. It's that's terrific. Here in Acadiana, we're known for music and dance, but not the kind you'd typically find in venues more refined than a dance hall. Clare and Lafayette, you are changing that. With the refurbishing of theaters in Eunice and Crowley and the ACA in Lafayette, we have the spaces to put on shows. Amy, your wide-ranging dramatic forays are bringing us homegrown live theater. Both of your work adds a new dimension to the Acadiana arts and entertainment scene. You're giving people the opportunity to work on a professional level in the performing arts, and you're increasing the sum happiness for the rest of us. Amy and Clare, it's been great to spend time with you. Thanks for everything you're doing, and thanks for taking the time to join me today on Out to Lunch.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Peter.
My guests on Out to Lunch today have been Clare Cook, Artistic Director of the Clare Cook Dance Theater and the founder of Basin Arts, and Amy Waguespack, the owner and Artistic Director of Acting Up Theater Company. You can find out more about Clare's dance company and Amy's theater company by following the links on our websites, krvs.org and itsacadiana.com. Today's show is recorded live over lunch at Cafe Vermilionville in Lafayette. Cafe V is open Monday through Friday for lunch 6 nights a week, for dinner, and a courtyard that sets the scene for fine Louisiana cuisine. The producer of our show is Grant Morris, our technical producer is Eric Merle, and our researcher is Ann Christian. Our theme song, Encore Monsieur Nice Guy, is written by Mitch Foreman and performed by Mitch Foreman and Andre Michaud. Our Acadiana business consultants are Pete Prados from Innovate Acadiana, Zach Barker from The Opportunity Machine, and Dr. Blake Escaday. If you want to know what we all look like, and I think that gives you a better perspective of the whole thing, you can find photos from this show on our website and Facebook page. These photos were taken today by Gwen Aucoin. You can get the show as a podcast. You can listen to past shows. You can keep up with us on all kinds of social media by going to our websites, itsacadiana.com and krvs.org. Support for Out to Lunch Acadiana comes from Wyndham Garden Lafayette, located off Pinhook near Calise Saloon. Wyndham Garden Lafayette is pet and family friendly with free parking and free Wi-Fi. Additional support comes from ABiz Magazine and AcadianaBusiness.com, the essential information source for business decision makers throughout the One Acadiana region. Out to Lunch is a production of I&O Broadcasting for itsacadiana.com and KRVS 88.7 FM. I'm Peter Raschuti. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the table here at Cafe Vermilionville for more business, Acadiana style, on Out to Lunch.
Major support for Out to Lunch Acadiana is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker. Established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. Support also comes from Wyndham Garden Lafayette.